Okay, aloha students. Sorry, just getting outside. This video is a short video to show you how to cyber-stalk a scientist. So with that, I'll just get into it. So basically, what I mean by cyber-stalking a scientist is, there's a lot of scientists out there. Most of your professors are publishing scientists who publish some sort of scholarly work in peer-reviewed journals about a variety of topics. And so with the global environment, I want you to cyber-stalk a scientist who studies the global environment in some capacity. That could be a climate scientist. It could be somebody who studies, I don't know, tree rings or heat waves or meteorology or biology or chemistry or whatever, right? As long as it has to do with the global environment, which is almost everything. So something I just clicked on recently, there have been some really bad heat waves. They're probably going to continue, right? And what does that look like? This paper. So this is just like coming up in my news feed, right? I got like a Google news feed. I'll just like click on news and, it learns what I like and what I don't like. And it learns that, I click on a lot of stuff about climate change because I'm interested in it. And I also teach classes about it. So I'm kind of constantly reading about it. And so this kind of came up, and what I want you to do is like look for news that you care about, right? And it can be current events. It certainly doesn't have to be, but you look, and these news stories, often like these scientific news stories, are written by journalists about papers, and the papers themselves are oftentimes a little bit, hard to digest. They're like, there's a lot of jargon. They're very scientific. They're written by 10 different people with PhDs, and like it's intense. Like it's hard to read, especially for kind of your average undergraduate. So what you'll notice here is like we've got why it matters. This study shows, so this is about heat waves, the recent deadly heat wave in the Pacific Northwest, all-time high temperatures, and this is also happening in Siberia, in Eurasia. But this study, which came out before these kind of record-breaking heat waves in the journal Nature Climate Change, explores that topic. And I want to know more about that. So it's like, okay, I'm going to click on that. And this should bring you to the Nature Climate Change article. I should say that I haven't actually looked at this yet. So this is like, I'm kind of doing this blind. Okay. Interesting. So increasing probability of record-shattering climate extremes. This is something that's been talked about for a long time. So this is the paper itself, right? And you can like download this PDF. If you have the VPN on, you'll get access to a lot of this stuff. So you download that paper if you want to. It should show up in my my downloads here, but this is sort of what it looks like. And it's going to have a number of authors, right? And so the way that authors are listed, if you don't know this already, is basically in order of how much work they did on the paper. So we've got E.M. Fisher, S. Sipel, and R. Newty. So if you see this ID here, this is the ORCID. This is actually like tied to an individual. So like I have one of these, and like each one of these people has one of these. So if you're actually publishing a lot, then this will actually bring you to that. And so like you can find out who like E.M. Fisher is. Is that a woman? Is that a man? I don't know. So let's look. And so this is like the process of cyber stalking somebody, right? And this person is interested in this topic. I should also say, in terms of the order of authors, the first author usually is the person that did the most stuff. And then the last author is oftentimes, the person who's like the senior author. And so oftentimes, so oftentimes actually like the last author is like the second most important author, which seems kind of funny, but the first author usually is the one. And oftentimes the first authors are younger. They're like younger scientists who are either PhD students or postdocs, or like young professors who are, trying to like bolster their kind of profile and get more publications and that kind of thing. So here we go. This is Eric Fisher. This is Eric Fisher's ORCID number from Switzerland, basically. Interesting. Okay, so what I can do is I can do a couple things, but one of the things I can do is I can just Google Scholar this person. So Eric Fisher, what I do is I go to Google Scholar and I'll just put in Eric's name, basically. Apologies for the slow internet. But I can put in a couple things in the Google Scholar. So I can put in Eric's name, but like Eric Fisher is like kind of I don't know, it's not to say a common name, but it's not like it's not like Jeffrey Fricker, for instance, where there's not a lot of us out there. So there's probably a couple others out there. So what you might want to do is be more specific. So like, let's just try it and see what happens. Okay. But what I would probably do is I would actually probably do this. I would probably actually Google the title of this paper. And what that will do is that'll bring me to that article as opposed to the person's name. So, and I know that it's in Nature Climate Change, so I can copy that. Oh, this is the same person actually. So this person has published a couple things in Nature. This is a really good scientist, basically. Consistent geographical patterns of changes in high impact European heat waves. Guess what? This is a heat wave researcher, right? And so this is the process of like cyber stalking this person. This was published 11 years ago. Guess what? This Eric Fisher guy has been looking at heat waves for more than a decade, maybe longer than that, right? And so I can look at that one too. So here's another one, just open that in a new tab. Here's another one. Eric is the first author on these. This is a top level scientist. This is like one of the best scientists probably in this domain. Differential climate impacts for policy relevant limits to global warming, the case of 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius. That's a really good paper. Let's look at that one. And then what you can also do is just click on their name. So like if you go to Eric Fisher's website and you can see here, citations, 18,000 citations. This guy's a heavy hitter, you might say, right? And you can look citations cited by 3,738, right? And so here are all of Eric Fisher's publications. If you sort it by year, you can look and like, here's person has published a few things this year. Wow, holy smokes. Like a ton of publications this year. So this is a good person to cyberstalk, basically. So anyway, you can go through his, recent publications or most cited publications. All the ones this year have only been cited like a handful of times. But like if you go by cited, which is how it like default sorts, it's like this one, long-term climate changes, change predictions, commitments, and irreversibility. This is Nature Climate Change, 2013, cited almost 4,000 times. Like this is a really big paper. This is a seminal paper in this field. To give you some perspective, let's just Google me real fast because I know that I don't have very many citations. I certainly don't have that many. So you can see like, and don't cyberstalk me. I mean, you can, but like, don't do it for your assignment, just because it's going to be less interesting. I'm probably far younger than this person, right? So I've got 300 citations, not like, hundreds of thousands or whatever, right? And part of this is I haven't been publishing papers as long, but you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here, right? So it doesn't have to be an Eric Smith level scientist. It can be another one of your professors at Cal Poly, or it can be, anyone who's on any of these papers that you're interested in. The point is I want you to like figure out who these people are, and actually, and there's multiple people on these papers, right? There can be hundreds, or there can be tens. In some of the big papers, there actually can be more than that. I've seen papers with like 100 authors on them. Okay, so because people like contribute data sets. So here's one of my PhD advisors. This would be a good person to like cyberstalk. So his name is Sasan Sachi. He works at the Jet Propulsion Lab at NASA. And this is his most cited paper, this benchmark maps, basically made these maps of biomass across these different regions, right? And so you can kind of see like, here are his best papers according to how many citations he's received, that kind of thing. And then you can actually look at the year too. So like, what was Sasan's most recent paper? Oh, this is a cool one, AfriSAR. So this is using microwave radar to map tropical forest biomass in Africa. That's pretty cool. All right, so you get the idea, basically. So what I would do is just go into Google Scholar or go into a news article that mentions a paper and go find that paper like I did with the Nature Climate Change article and just start putting stuff in here, right? So, heat waves we've already talked about, but let's look at like biodiversity loss, tropics, something like that, right? And when you do this, you can see, how many times it's been cited, what year it was and what paper. So like the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, great journal, probably like the third best journal, Nature and Science being the first two. But then there's all these other like sub journals that can be really good, but they're specific to their niche. So like global biodiversity loss and tropical deforestation, this was cited by 129 people. So this person here, we can look up that person, right? And so you can cyberstalk that person. So you get the idea. And then like through searching through all the literature, you like find out what their research topics are, how long have they been doing this, how many citations do they have, where are they getting their money from, who do they collaborate with, et cetera. So you kind of get an idea here of, this person here, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Cool. So anyway, you get the idea. This is how you cyberstalk somebody, a scientist. And so this is, your assignment. And, again, go back to Google Scholar and just punch in search terms that you think are interesting and use the journal and use the number of citations as kind of a barometer for, how important this work is. Some of it is not very important, or the scientific community at large hasn't decided that it's very important because it hasn't been cited many times. Those really big papers that are kind of earth-shattering are cited a lot because people notice these things, and when they're in high-profile journals like Nature and Science, they get noticed a lot more readily because they have such a good reputation and they're really well reviewed and that kind of thing. So anyway, with that, I'll stop the sharing, I'll stop the recording, and hopefully that's helpful for this assignment.